Voters in the Osseo School District could see a $225 million bonding referendum on the ballot this fall. Officials say bonding would fund classroom, safety, and infrastructure improvements across the district. $61 million would go to building a new elementary school in northwestern Maple Grove. Supporters say the funding is a long time coming. Others are skeptical of the need for another school.
This need is really to provide necessary classroom space to reduce class sizes and meet the growing enrollment challenges that are coming.
I still have questions about the need and the fairness of the new school on taxpayers. It's really hard to go referendum one after the next and the next year when taxpayers are worried about inflation and property taxes increasing.
The school board is expecting to vote on the proposal sometime in May. A little more than 6 months after thousands of nurses walked off the job across the Twin Cities, union members were back at the state capitol on Wednesday. As Rusty Ray reports, nurses are excited about a possible new state law that could help address staffing concerns.
Dozens of members of the Minnesota Nurses Association returned to the state capitol Wednesday. They say the 15-year fight to pass the Keep Nurses at the Bedside Act is almost over. Mary Turner is union president and a nurse at North Memorial Health Hospital in Robbinsdale.
Gives us a percentage of nurses that can meet with management and other healthcare members to discuss staffing.
Staffing levels that led nurses to strike last summer and is at the heart of the legislation.
That's why we're here, folks. That's why we've always been here, and we will be here until it gets done.
Turner says it's not just about the number of patients she and her fellow nurses care for at a time.
But the acuity is higher. People, they don't come into the hospital for migraines anymore. You have to be very, very sick to be in the hospital, and so that's the problem. The acuity is way higher, and they're trying to creep those numbers back up again.
Lawmakers say there is bipartisan support to pass the bill this year, and one of the keys, they say, is that it does not tell hospitals how many nurses they have to have per patient.
This bill empowers hospitals to bring nurses to the table and work together to set safe staffing levels and ensure that nurses are truly heard in that conversation. But we, the legislature, will not tell individual hospitals what their nurse ratios need to be.
Nurses are society's caregivers. And we have been up here for 15 years fighting for you, because that's ultimately, if you see these red shirts, we're not only up here for our profession. Our number one goal is up here to be here for our patients.
In St. Paul, Rusty Ray, CCX News.
The House is expected to pass its version of the Keep Nurses at the Bedside Act. It would then go to a conference committee to work out any differences with the Senate version, which also passed. The Minnesota Senate is planning a vote Friday on the legalization of recreational marijuana. This follows House approval of a bill on Tuesday. The Senate bill differs from the House version. Two of the main differences include possession and license limits. The House version limits at-home possession to 1.5 pounds. For the Senate, it's 5 pounds. The Senate version would also let local governments limit the number of cannabis businesses. The House bill lacks a cap. Representative Kristen Robbins of Maple Grove calls the House bill flawed, saying it prevents cities from revoking cannabis retail licenses if problems develop. Representative Melissa Hortman of Brooklyn Park calls the bill sensible legislation that addresses racial inequities in the criminal justice system. A Maple Grove lawmaker is behind a bill that she says will position Minnesota as a leader in cybersecurity.
Think of this bill as IT security and cybersecurity for the state of Minnesota, like national security on a digital level.
Representative Kristen Bonner says the legislation would allow the state to take swifter action in the event of a cyber attack by activating the National Guard and outside groups in security operations. It would also help the state receive federal disaster relief funding. Cybersecurity has been a hot topic around the state after Rochester schools were shut down by a cyber threat and a meat processing plant in Worthington fell victim to a ransomware attack. The bill passed the House, 122 votes to 0. In Osseo, a city council member stormed out of a heated debate at a meeting this week. Council members say their fellow colleague Harold Johnson formed a planning committee for the city's 150th anniversary celebration without their approval. Johnson said he worked with an independent group of volunteers to start planning the event. Other council members felt he violated open meeting laws and the city's respectful workplace policy.
This council was left out and this council is still left out. And this whole thing has been taken hostage and planned.
And this was just an example of a recurring pattern of behavior that people are concerned about.
There's no need for the city to think that they have to set up codes and committees and councils and whatever else they want to do, because there's a group of volunteers that are more than willing to set up and work on this.
The council expects to discuss the issue again at a future meeting. Stages Theater Company in Hopkins is doing something it rarely does. It will run 2 shows simultaneously for the next few weeks.
The space is really cool. It's in the JC studio. It's a really interactive space because the audience is kind of right in the middle of everything that's going on.
That's Adeline Cardenas, who plays the lead role in the world premiere of Ramey Nightingale. That's one of 2 shows going on at Stages in addition to Newsies Jr. Ramey Nightingale is based off of the award-winning 2016 book by Minnesota author Kate DiCamillo. Set in 1975, Ramey is the story of a girl in Florida who is trying to cope with the emotions of being raised by a single mother after her father left. The play takes the audience through the lessons learned by children who struggle with their mental health.
It showcases the importance of mental health and supporting kids and helping them to learn how to cope with their emotions rather than trying to suppress them.
This all-female cast and crew production of Ramey Nightingale will run from this Friday until May 21st.
The Champlin Park and Armstrong baseball teams had each gotten to play just 2 games coming into their matchup Tuesday. It turned into a good battle. Jay Wilcox has highlights.
Armstrong at home to face Champlin Park in Northwest Suburban Conference Baseball. The Falcons get on the board early as Dayton Franke's chopper up the middle gets through the infield. Dawson Franke scores for a 1-0 Falcons lead in the bottom of the first. 2 batters later, A.J. Kiebelbeck skips one off the mound and threw for another hit. Dayton Franke scores, and when it gets past the center fielder, Drew Kemple comes in as well for a 3-0 Armstrong lead. After trailing 5-0, Champlin Park gets the bats going later. Joe Theraldson beats out an infield hit in the top of the 6th to score a run, and the Rebels are within 5-2. Down 6-2 entering the 7th, and Andrew Rockow connects. His solo drive leading off the 7th makes it 6-3, and the Rebels are just getting started. Down 6-5 and down to their final out, Justin Brooks delivers a line single to left to bring the tying run home. And when Armstrong throws wildly to second, Theraldson scores the go-ahead run. Champlin Park gets 5 in the 7th to rally for a 7-6 win. Jay Wilcox, CCX Sports.
After a 4th-place finish in the state Class 4A tournament last season, Maple Grove's baseball team started 0-2 this spring. They look to change that when they face St. Michael Albertville. Maple Grove and St. Michael Albertville baseball, each team looking for their first win of the season. Maple Grove gets on the board first. Van Olsen, after a single, stolen base and error, scores from third on a wild pitch. It's 1-0 Crimson in the 3rd inning. Good starting pitching in this game. Maple Grove's Sam Kleiber with one of his 4 strikeouts here to end the STMA 3rd. On the other side, the nice Braden Intrary with a strikeout to end the Maple Grove 4th to keep the score 1-0. The Knights threaten in the bottom of the 5th, getting runners to 2nd and 3rd with no one out, but Maple Grove records 2 outs at the plate, including Kleiber to catcher Kellen Riskadal here. It's 1-0 after 5. STMA finally gets runs in the 6th inning. Curtis Lecatz drives one deep to the corner in left field. Thomas Ohado comes around to score, and the game is tied. The Knights later add another run on a bases-loaded walk to lead 2-1 going into the 7th. That's when Maple Grove scores a rally of their own. Kleiber singles past first base and into right field. Caden Harney and Dylan Vogel both score on Kleiber's hit, and it's 3-2 Crimson. Hunter Gerber comes on and pitches a 1-2-3 bottom of the 7th, striking out the side, including this one to end the game. Maple Grove wins 3-2 to improve to 1-2 on the season. STMA is now 0-3. Maple Grove's boys tennis team is off to a good start. Here's Jay Wilcox with highlights from their match against Champlin Park.
Champlin Park visiting Maple Grove in boys tennis. Gavin Kelleher of Champlin Park serving at first singles to Carter Sheard of the Crimson. After they trade shots, Kelleher comes to the net after a sharp forehand to the corner. Then his volley sets up an overhead winner as Kelleher plays well early in the match. Come on. Same match, and they've switched sides. Sheard gets to the net, and he'll end up winning a battle of volleys with good hands. Sheard takes the match 6-2, 6-3 for Maple Grove. To doubles, Oliver Walseth serves for Maple Grove, and Alvin Magia with soft touch at the net puts it away. They beat Mitchell Palmer and Alexander Bang 6-2, 6-2 at number 1 doubles. Second doubles, Adam Deschler the serve, and Beck Picanato with the overhead for the Crimson. They beat Gavin Ogdahl and Thomas Yang as Maple Grove improves to 9-1 with a 7-0 win. Jay Wilcox, CCX Sports.
Find more prep sports games and highlights at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.